What's going on, guys? So in front of me we have the 2023 GMC Sierra Denali 1500 with the all-new 3-liter LZO inline-6 diesel Duramax engine. And my good friend Tim over at Pickup Trucks and SUV Talk did a really cool video kind of addressing a concern that some folks with, I guess, this truck as well as the previous generation 3-liter diesel engine have been talking about, and this is oil consumption. Does the truck engine consume more oil, or actually consume oil, period, after 2,000 miles? Now, Tim did a fantastic video on this, so I definitely recommend checking out his video. He actually showed you where GM actually states in their paperwork that this truck can consume up to, I'm actually not going to even say up to, but it can consume 1 quart per 2,000 miles and possibly more depending on how you drive the truck and what conditions you drive it in. So he did an oil check on his truck, and I'm going to do one on this truck. So hang tight, I'll be right back. Okay, before we do this, I've done a few videos on fuel economy so far. I don't know where in the queue of videos that I've done those videos are going to pop up or when they're going to pop up. But that said, if you watch this video, the truck may have more miles on this video than it does in some of the other videos. So I just wanted you to keep that in mind. Now I'm going to go ahead and see what our current odometer is. It was 2,238 miles. You can see that right down there, 2,238 miles, which is very similar to the number of miles that Tim had on his truck whenever he did the video as well. So we're both past the 2,000 mile mark. Again, this video may come out sooner than some other videos where I have lower miles, but just keep in mind that, you know, sometimes you have to produce videos that don't show for a couple of days. So we're going to go ahead and check the oil on this truck and see where we're at. Now, just like Tim mentioned in his video, for me, it's kind of odd to hear of an oil consumption rate with a diesel engine. Now, I know that diesel fuel has oil in it because the compression process used in diesel engines requires that. But when it comes to oil, as far as the oil that's inside of the oil pan, that's used to lubricate the engine and to keep the engine from seizing up. Now, something to keep in mind is when you check your oil, no matter how long your truck has been sitting, there's some oil that's going to be circulated through the engine regardless. Just like if I took oil and I smeared it on the side of my truck, just because I'm driving down the road, just because the truck gets hot and then cool, doesn't mean all of that oil is going to run down and collect at the bottom. So just like that in an engine, you know, as you're driving it, yes, the oil is going to thin out. It's going to become more viscous as it moves through your engine. And then as you stop, it's going to settle in the bottom of your oil pan. But that doesn't mean that all the capacity that your truck is designed to carry in terms of oil is going to settle at the bottom of your pan. So something else Tim pointed out in his video is that they fill these up with an extra quart of oil when it's brand new. So basically, when the engine is installed in the truck, they put 1 extra quart of oil, which, if I'm correct by my math, the oil pan has a 7-quart capacity, so there could be 8 quarts of oil. When Tim did his oil check, it showed his being at about the halfway mark. And then, of course, flying overhead. All right, so when I check the oil in my truck, if it matches his, then it may be about at the halfway mark on the dipstick. Now, this is the part that's going to be interesting. I took my truck out on a quick trip this morning, and I drove it for probably about 30 minutes. It's been sitting here not running for at least an hour now. So it's going to be interesting to see where the oil is on the dipstick. And again, this is assuming that GM puts an extra quart of oil in this engine, which for Tim, his truck actually, again, even with that extra quart of oil, showed it was at the halfway mark on the dipstick. So let's see what mine does. Okay, so I'm going to pull the dipstick out right now. I'm going to go ahead and wipe it down. Nice and clean. And let's see what's going on here. So mine is actually still showing over the full mark. I don't know if you can see that. Whereas Tim's was showing it about the halfway mark. And that's probably because I think he may have ran his truck a little bit more, or maybe because of the cold temperature that it was in, and the oil became less viscous, even though the truck was sitting. So, yeah, this is kind of an interesting result. Down here in the south, right now it's about 65 degrees outside. Yeah, the oil appears to have pretty much been collected in the bottom, and it's still showing that it's over the full indicator. So very, very different results than what Tim had with his. And again, it could just be the differences in climate, because if the oil moves or returns slower to his oil pan than it may in my truck, then, you know, that could obviously cause a difference in terms of the readout whenever we look at our dipsticks. Let's go ahead and do that one more time just so we can verify that the readout we got is accurate. Again, I'm going to remove the dipstick, make sure there's no oil on it. And again, it is above full. So yeah, we're seeing the same results this time as we saw last time, and it looks as if we're in pretty good shape in terms of oil. The consumption of this oil isn't nearly as bad as what Tim saw on his truck. But then again, it could be a climate thing. Let's get cleaned up, close the hood, and I'll talk to you a little bit more. Okay, so that was kind of interesting because it was significantly different results than what Tim got with his truck. And I believe probably those results are different because of, honestly, probably environmental differences. The fact that the climate where he's at is entirely different than the climate is down here. How he uses his truck may be different than how I've used this truck. A lot of the stuff I've done with this truck so far has been to determine fuel economy and to see exactly what type of fuel economy you get under normal usage. That being said, though, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm driving the truck the same way he's driving his truck. But again, I think probably the number one reason why the trucks both have such differences in terms of oil usage is because of the climate. It's in a far, far colder climate all day long and pretty much all month long than my truck. My truck hasn't been exposed to the types of temperatures his truck has. On the opposite end of that, though, we've had some days in the mid to high 80s, a few in the 90s since I've had the truck, and I've certainly driven the truck on some pretty long trips down to South Texas and some other areas. So again, the mileage is roughly the same, but two completely different outcomes in terms of oil. Now, you could say, well, he has a few extra 100 miles on his truck than I do at the time we tested this, but the reality is with his oil showing at the halfway mark on his dipstick, is nowhere near where it's showing on mine. Mine's showing above full. So again, the outcomes are very different, even though both trucks share the same engine. They're roughly the same weight. He does have a different gear ratio than mine, so my truck is definitely more towards the fuel economy side. He has a higher towing capacity as well because of the specific way he outfitted his truck. So that may factor into it as well, how hard the engine is working to move the vehicle, how the gear ratio impacts how the truck accelerates and how it holds speed, and what the RPMs are whenever you're at a certain speed. So again, very interesting to see two completely different outcomes whenever doing the same oil check at roughly the same mileage on a 2023 LZO 3.0 liter inline 6 baby Duramax engine. Anyways, guys, I sure hope you enjoyed this video. Please take a moment, check out Tim's video, because that's what kind of inspired me to do this video, plus a few folks that left comments on videos I've made so far asking me what my oil consumption looks like. So far, normal driving, nothing super aggressive, no super aggressive towing, pretty much trying to drive the truck to maximize fuel economy on relatively long trips in the South Texas heat, even though it hasn't been nearly as hot as it typically is. Shows that the truck is really burning no oil at all. So, very cool. Guys, if you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.